What is the best handgun in Remnant 2? These trusty sidearms come in many small forms. Some are great for support, others are great for slotting powerful mods, and some can even deal good damage all on their own. After 700 plus hours in the game, I tend to favor a few over others. So let's take a look at what options you might like as well. But before we do, here is the build I ran with these weapons. Now, some items require you to build into their mod, which means this build doesn't apply to every single handgun, but it does work for many of them. Running with the Challenger and Gunslinger classes gives us much faster fire rate and damage from the skills. Then we went to up our crit and weak spot, which is typical of ranged builds. The most important items here are the Void Idol, as it greatly boosts reload speed, and reloads only cost half of your magazine. Without this, handguns run out of ammo too quickly to be used as your main gun. Then we also have the Ring of Infinite Damage to further bolster fire rate. Any sidearm you want to actually use for range damage can really excel with this setup. Now that you have some idea of what we're running here, let's rank every handgun in Remnant 2 from worst to best. The Rusty Repeater is your basic starting handgun. It has the worst overall stats in the game, not even having a mod slot or mutator. Use it while you have to, and then drop it as fast as you can. F tier. The Repeater pistol is the upgraded version of the Rusty Repeater, having a mod slot and mutator with some better stats. Now, in the first game, this had a lot of potential as your handgun options were more limited, and it had a good amount of bullets. However, we have a ton of options this time around, and the Repeater underperforms compared to almost all of them. There really isn't a mutator that feels good on this, and while it has a good amount of bullets to keep enemies off you, it has low stagger and deals low damage. Simply running an automatic gun with a free mod slot is much more valuable. F tier. The Service Pistol is a very small pistol that shoots 9 bullets per magazine. It has a quick reload and can fire quickly, also having a kind of cool sound on each shot. The advantage of this pistol over the Repeater is that it simply feels a bit better to fire. You would ideally use this so you could place any mod on it and more or less main the mod instead of the gun itself, as it can regen mods decently. But this guy also has most of the weaknesses of the Repeater, with less bullets making it a very weak option on almost every build. F tier. The Western Classic is your cowboy pistol, shooting out 6 bullets very quickly, or really very quickly, but it is one of these starting handguns and thus doesn't have much going for it. Now, the speed of fire paired with a little bit of stagger makes it passable, but passable at best. When I use it, I honestly feel like I'm reloading the entire time. You're almost able to shoot the bullets out faster than the reload animation. The worst aspect of this Western Classic is that the reload has a slight pause after you reload it, where you are done reloading it but also can't fire it. It really sticks out like a sore thumb and is ultimately a worse version of the Silverback 500, making it only useful if you do not have that as an option. F tier. Anguish is the cool handgun we were given with the Awakened King DLC. It has a very long and tedious quest to get it, looks very cool compared to most other guns in the game, and is really terrible. This gun has basically nothing going for it whatsoever. First off, it has a charge time similar to bows and the gun's savior. Charging the shots also drains your health for really no good reason at all, and the mod deals explosive damage. Build it into high crit and this thing underperforms. Build it into explosions for the mod and charge shots and it still underperforms. Nothing in the game makes this gun that good, and 5 bullets before each reload makes it a bad handgun overall. I often use my handguns as support when my main gun is out of ammo. Anguish feels like it requires so much effort to fire that it becomes my main gun instead of support. And worst of all, the mod on this is a duration-based mod, which means it stays active for a period of time. And there is no way to cancel the mod, making it absolutely terrible. If enemies manage to get anywhere close to you, you need to simply stop shooting or it's going to blow you up. Ideally, you would simply stop the mod and switch over to the main fire mode, but no, you're stuck in the mod form. Some people do enjoy this weapon and that's perfectly fine, but you need to build way too much into it for it to even be usable. And considering this takes longer to get than most items, it is in a pretty sad state. Buff Anguish, I am begging you. F tier. The Rune pistol is an automatic sidearm that fires in burst, similar to a pulse rifle. It has a lot of bullets per magazine and actually feels pretty darn nice to fire as well. The mod tied to this, called Soul Brand, applies a white marker to enemies in your radius. Defeat these enemies and they leave behind a brand that grants you some health regen. This item is very usable and actually fires quite well in combat. The mod, however, is basically useless. There are many forms of healing in Remnant 2, and this is by far one of the most unreliable and weakest options overall. Nearly impossible to use properly in boss fights, and often it's much better to simply have a mod that deals damage to keep smaller enemies off of you. There's no good reason to ever run this item in the current state of the game, although it is a very cool idea. F tier. Meridian is the one and only grenade launcher that we have access to. Yes, the only one. The corrupted version is not a grenade launcher anymore, and instead a mini rocket launcher. This weapon was all the rage upon release of the game, as it has 5 mod charges that fire a high damage rocket at your enemies. At the time, you could charge the mod infinitely, letting you release rocket after rocket. Probably one of the best options for mod builds at the time. Well, now it's no longer possible to build up mod energy while using the mod, and while it does deal good damage, it has nowhere near as much crit chance as its brother, the corrupted Meridian. And the main fire on this thing, while fun, is just bad. I mean, it fires like a grenade launcher, but you're more or less spraying grenades all over the place and hoping to hit something. Reloading every 5 bullets also isn't that good. Everything this used to be used for, the corrupted version does much better, and the primary fire mode is unreliable, giving Meridian no place to work well. This is a gun that you use for fun, or if you don't have the corrupted version. D tier. Hellfire is a short-ranged SMG that fires, well, fire. Instead of bullets, you get a flamethrower that can deal nice elemental damage. Its mod gives you a 2-charge explosive grenade that explodes on contact. This is, in fact, a pretty good option when you first get it for regenning your mods with Stone of Malevolence, and a flamethrower is usually pretty fun in video games. But this gun and Nebula have a very similar form of fire that gets no range whatsoever. You can't hit flying bosses well at all and are forced to sort of hug your opponent 24/7. Now, the big difference between Nebula and Hellfire is the mod. Nebula's mod is one of the best in the game, whereas Hellfire's is completely unusable up close. It's an explosive, so you want to launch it at a distance, but the gun needs for you to be up close and personal, making Hellfire very unreliable in most combat situations. Still one of the more fun guns in the game, but kind of a misplaced mod on the gun. D tier. The Rupture Cannon is a very accurate gun that has a solid magazine size and great stagger. It has an open mod slot, letting you use it in any way you really want. As far as mid-tier weapons go, this is the perfect example. The gun has no real negative whatsoever, while also having no major positives, letting you use it on builds for support or maining it with different mods. It's a pretty solid option at keeping enemies off of you and is another very fun sidearm to run. Looking pretty awesome, might I add as well. Rupture Cannon is actually really great when run with the Bulldog for dual shotgun play, where you have good ammo in both magazines and solid damage. Get this guy to fire quickly and you will see some nasty results. But run it without reload speed boosts and you're in for a long wait between mags. Great gun that sits nicely in its place and is really fun when using the Overflow mod. C tier. Sorrow is one of the weirdest sidearms in Remnant 2. It's a small one-handed crossbow that fires very quickly. It's very tough to run on builds without thinking of other options, but this item is very powerful. The idea is to use it and its mod together for high range damage. The mod recalls bolts that you have shot out. Recalled bolts return ammo and overfill the magazine, which lets you fire 5 shots, use the mod, then fire 10 shots. With a very quick reload, it's reliable as a heal, solid for range weak spots, and nice for mod damage. I think it's one of the weapons that feels odd at first, but with some time, settles into this nice loop that feels very comfortable. Getting a gun and its mod to play nice together is actually really rewarding. Only downside here really is that there are often better options, but give it a try and the mod alone might surprise you, being very solid for damage and healing. C tier. Sure Shot is the sniper pistol. Run it with Slayer and you have an extremely high damage shot, always waiting. The gun can be reloaded in an instant, and the weak spot on it is what you'd expect from an actual sniper. This item is very good for the raw power that it brings to the table. If you can hit easy weak spots, then it's a go-to option, pairing very nicely with shotgun swap builds or even a sniper swap build where you'd use Sidewinder on Gunslinger. There are a few downsides though. Number one being that without weak spots, this guy does not provide enough to be worth using. You really need those large red numbers to get the most effect out of it, and it feels like a worse version of the double barrel. Yeah, Sure Shot deals more damage and has a tight reticle, but the sawed-off can do very similar damage and has 2 bullets in each magazine instead of 1, making it feel way more useful in dungeons. Sure Shot is amazing at its job, which is pinpointing a weakness and blasting the heck out of it. However, there are many situations where having an automatic feels more useful, like when dealing with orbs in some of the boss fights on Narude. B tier. The Cube Gun is easily the most wacky and yet underutilized handgun in Remnant 2. On the surface, it's a very neat looking item that doesn't feel like it has a place in any build. However, this simply is not the case. The cube gun has 5 total bullets per magazine with infinite ammo. Instead of ever reloading the gun, it retracts its bullets after they hit a surface, so the closer you are to a target, the more quickly you can deal that damage. Now this does overheat, and it does so quickly, which is a large downside. Ideally, you run the Ingenuity mutator to nullify this by a significant amount. The infinite ammo mechanic also has a very unique interaction when paired up with the shiny hog lure ring. The ring grants mod power back when you reload. What's cool is that every time ammo is returned back to the cube gun, this counts as reloading, so you can actually gain infinite mod regen from firing this at enemies or even just the ground. The mod on this also creates a cube around you that blocks all projectiles, completely nullifying many mechanics bosses have. And a lot of enemies in general like to throw stuff at you. With the shiny hog lure, you can always protect yourself, making it nice for low defense builds that need a safety net. The mod also can be pressed again to shoot out this cube barrier and deal damage to enemies it hits. Do not sleep on this gun. It feels weird at first, but offers a lot that might benefit you more than you think. Infinite ammo also makes it one of the best support handguns because it really is ready to go at any time. Just be aware, it's basically useless at long range. B tier. The MP60 is the single most reliable handgun in the game. It fires quickly with a very solid magazine size. You can equip almost any mutator, with Bandit being nice and Momentum offering some decent damage. Fetid Wounds with Hotshot can be great as well, and it's always ready to kick into gear. This is an excellent item to have for shooting down orbs or minions in boss fights, and the decent reload speed means it won't hang you up. There really isn't much else to say other than that it's very reliable. You've got some solid crit, mid-range potential, fast firing, and very manageable recoil. Any build can utilize this to some degree because it's an SMG. They're in like every shooter because of how useful it is to fire a bunch of bullets quickly from short to medium range. B tier. The Silverback 500 is one of the best regular weapons in Remnant 2. It has extremely high damage per shot, excellent accuracy, massive stagger, and hits like a truck. Yes, you do need to reload every 5 bullets, but each bullet can greatly benefit you in close range or long range scenarios. You will want to always run the Song of a Fear mod with it, as it turns the thing into a Destiny handgun. Most of the mutators also work here, with Extender being one of the better options if you intend to use it regularly. What's crazy is that Rupture Cannon is an actual shotgun, and this gun has double the stagger that gun has. You can very easily keep enemies off of you with this item, and when required, it can put in some good damage numbers on bosses too. If you're looking for just a basic secondary gun to be there when you need it, this is the best option. No need to build into it, no need to run more reload speed, it puts in work. This gun here is the main reason the Western Classic is so bad. They're very similar in concept, but the Silverback beats it every time. A tier. The Tech 22 is what happens when you want an SMG to fire faster. This small pistol shoots out 30 bullets very rapidly with automatic fire. You're going to want to run with Momentum as the mutator and Corrosive Rounds as the mod. With this, you have a gun that always deals very strong crit. Considering crit is one of the strongest sources of damage to build into, the Tech 22 has a lot of uses. You can use it with any of the good range crit builds to shred smaller enemies instantly. You can quickly apply statuses that can boost the damage of your main gun. Heck, you can do anything with it because it has one of the fastest reloads. The only downside is that it runs out of bullets quickly. So, if you need reliable shots over a long period of time, the MP60 is definitely better. But the machine pistol was one of my favorite handguns in the first game, and the Tech 22 is the carbon copy of that gun. Now, it definitely has low stagger, which needs to be noted, but everything else about it feels just right. A tier. The Corrupted Rune Pistol is what happens when the devs take a look at a bad gun and give you a much better version. This option fires fully automatic, has less bullets than the previous version, and has a very fast reload. When actually trying to deal damage with this item, it performs surprisingly well. For range damage builds, it can be used for damage instead of your main gun in many cases. But the big kicker is the mod. While the Rune Pistol's mod is almost useless, this version offers you more damage. On use, it marks all hostile targets in the area with a red brand, making them take 10% more damage from everything. Defeat branded enemies and you get echoes, which increase weak spot damage dealt by 10%. This can be thrown on any build type to boost all damage by 10%. And anytime you're dealing weak spot damage, you get 20% more damage overall just by using the mod. This makes the Corrupted Rune Pistol very good at buffing in general. Nice for team play to boost everyone's damage, and nice in solo play to beat bosses faster. This gun is always an option no matter what you're running, and when using it as a gun, it also shines far above many other options. Bullet Weaver feels particularly nice on this weapon to boost the mod regen and fire bullets faster. A tier. Corrupted Meridian is the upgrade to Meridian, and it's the sole reason you should never be using the other version. It is by far the best corrupted weapon added into the game thus far. Instead of the delayed explosion of the other version, this fires rockets that move out in a straight line. This still does underperform a bit, as the main fire is mostly used with detonation trigger and stone of malevolence to regen your mod, which is where you get this gun's mod dead point. With 2 charges, this shoots out a cluster grenade, exploding on contact and dealing several explosions in an instant, each with their own damage number. Run it with harmonizer or feedback and it absolutely slaps bosses, elites, and everything else. This mod is so good because, again, crit is one of the most powerful forms of damage in this game. The mod has many more chances to crit as it explodes several times. Thus, you can run it with Burden of the Gambler and get all these nice yellow numbers. Explosion builds are some of the most fun and easy ways to beat Remnant 2, requiring little effort to deal damage and clear out dungeons with ease. The Corrupted Meridian is the best option for these types of builds if you're relying on crit alone, and it has one of the most satisfying mods to both use and hear in the game. A tier. Starshot is a very unique and interesting gun that you need to be using. Now, usually this would be much lower on the list, but in the current state of the game, it is by far the dumbest easy mode weapon you can get your hands on. If you're not aware, using the Stone of Malevolence with the mod on Corrupted Aphelion grants you full mod regen every time you use it. Now pair that with Starshot and you have infinite mod regen on the gun. Why is this so good, you ask? Well, Starshot's mod literally sets off a nuke. This mod's called Big Bang. It goes from 1 to 5 stacks. Each time you fire the mod, it shoots all the stacks available. The more stacks you have, the more damage it does. With the Corrupted Aphelion's mod regen, you get 5 stacks of the mod over and over, and this does at least 3k damage in every shot, possibly much more than that. Not to mention the mod also applies burning to further regen your mods and deal high status damage. Run Archon with the Ritualist class right now, use Detonation Trigger, Burden of the Gambler, and Stone of Malevolence, and you can one-shot the entire game. Then when you get to bosses, you blast them over and over until they go away. This is an extremely fun way to beat Apocalypse while making it look like it's easy mode. Not to mention the gun's main fire shoots out explosive shots, which is good on explosion builds in general. S tier. Nebula is actually one of my favorite looking guns. It has the face of Tau Rotha and spews out acid in a mist. Sadly, the main fire of this gun is very short range, which isn't the most useful in every fight. However, it is still good, as the mist applies corrosion, which makes enemies take 10% more damage. You can throw this on and instantly get more damage and damage over time. But none of that even compares to the power of this thing's mod. Nano Swarm sends out several nano machines that eat away at your enemies, dealing acid damage with every single hit. This mod can easily regen other mods, has a good chance to crit, and requires no control from the user. You press the button and these things go put in work. For those who don't know, there was actually a version of this mod in the first game that could be slotted on any weapon. Yeah, it's as good as it sounds. In Remnant 2, the mod is tied to Nebula, but it's so darn good that the mod alone makes this gun S tier. If you don't really want to use your sidearm, you could throw this on and get a lot out of it without ever firing the thing. Harmonizer makes the mod even stronger while helping to regen your other gun's mod even faster. Yeah, the main fire is a bit of a downside, but balances the gun's extremely high power more than anything else. S tier. The double barrel is a gun I rarely use, but honestly I should be using it way more often, because wow, is this an absolute beast. Now in my mind, the best possible way to run it is with corrosive rounds to increase crit and extender to get 3 total bullets with a fast reload. The smaller amount of ammo does seem like it'd be problematic, but you're getting your money's worth with each shot. The gun deals massive crit numbers, amazing stagger, and can be turned into a sniper if you reduce reticle size. As far as being a support item, this guy does it all, and still manages to hit for thousands of damage in every shot. I also love weapons that reload quickly, and this guy can pop off 2 shots, flip open, and then be ready to pop off 2 more in just a second. The reliability of the double barrel cannot be overstated, and it surprises me every time I throw it on. Plus, you can run any mod or mutator on it, letting you really customize it into your build however you want. S tier. The Bolt Driver is a very strong handgun that will never be better than it is currently. With Overflow as the mod and Sequence Shot as the mutator, it fires faster than anything and doesn't need you to build into it whatsoever. Usually it's going to require Archer's Crest and maybe Gunslinger to get the fire rate moving, but at the moment, Sequence Shot removes the need for any of that. After the initial charge, it shoots the entire mag instantly with insanely high damage. Of all the weapons I ran the other day, this guy did the most damage in the shortest amount of time. It's basically an SMG that fires faster and deals more damage. Not to mention that of all the fusion rifle type weapons, this one is by far the most fun to use. And yeah, there really isn't much to say about it. The high damage it offers makes it extremely reliable for a secondary damage dealer, and it too can use any mod if you're looking to run other things. Now the mutator is not customizable at all. A sequence shot is way too good on it, but the sheer damage the bolt driver offers makes it feel like an excellent option. S tier. And to no one's surprise, Enigma is still the best #1 handgun in Remnant 2. Now, a few weeks ago, I would have said this is not the case because it has very slow reload and honestly doesn't feel like it has more damage than some of these other options. That was until content creator Chaos Gaming told me about the Lively Mutator. This item vastly improves the gun's reload speed and range damage, making it far too good to pass up. Enigma's whole idea is chaining. It's a sort of ranged SMG that chains electrical currents from one enemy to another, letting you shoot one enemy and defeat like all of them at the same time. With the Lively Mutator equipped, kills make it reload instantly, and you could just get more out of this gun than anything else. Of all the challenging aspects of Remnant 2, running through Lawsome is by far the most consistent pain I deal with. All of the enemies there jump out at you, they have super tiny weak spots, and in groups make your life a living nightmare. And this is the case in many dungeons. Enigma is the only option that lets you get out of a sticky situation by attacking everything you see at the same time. Not only that, but it is still the only gun that can effectively deal with the orbs in Annihilation's boss fight at the end of the game. The Song of a Fear mod is great there as well, yes, but Enigma is almost a requirement for that fight because it does such a good job at clearing those orbs. Enigma has always been amazing, and with the Lively Mutator, it feels like it did before they nerfed it for balance reasons. This gun also has a mod called Chaos Driver, which has more charges than anything else. With 7 mod charges, it can benefit all kinds of mutators, like Maelstrom for elemental damage, Time Wave for slow, Failsafe for no mod consumption, and even Harmonizer for more damage. Now, there is a lot of confusion on how this mod works, so let me quickly break it down as well. The mod sends out a little node that deals shock damage. If you shoot more nodes, each attaches to make them do more damage. To get the most out of this, you want to make sure all of your nodes are attached to the enemy in different spots, and then one of them is attached to the ground. This, of course, doesn't need to be used on regular enemies, but for bosses, that's going to be the best way to use it. You can make use of them any way you like. For example, I enjoy creating a star around enemies to shock them quickly, or using it as offensive damage. But for the maximum damage, you do want to do that main strategy as it works better. And the mod can hit weak spots, making it just ridiculously strong. Enigma has an extremely powerful form of ad clear from its fire mode and an extremely powerful form of boss damage from its mod mode, culminating in a gun that offers the best of both worlds that makes it the single most reliable sidearm in the game still. S tier. And there you have every handgun in Remnant 2 ranked from worst to best. The sidearms are a much more unique case as you have a lot of really useless options. Most of the starting ones really aren't great at all and are just there to offer unique gameplay until you get something better. You also have cases like Anguish where the gun was designed with like nothing in mind really, and it doesn't bring anything to the table that other options don't do better. But at the same time, you have a lot of A tier and S tier options that can go on almost any build. Corrupted Meridian and Starshot are for mods only and are just so good for that, but most others offer more damage, easy access to any mod, or simply reliability. And at the end of the day, being able to attack multiple enemies at once is the most useful perk an item can have for general gameplay, and Enigma does it best. Hopefully you got something out of this video, and if you did, a like down below would be appreciated. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.